So this is a kind of quote that I quite like from Einstein. We didn't feature it in the podcast actually, but it said that everything is really great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom, i.e. work. And so it's the idea that if we are going to do great work, if we are going to be inspired to create stuff, then actually we all need freedom in our work to be able to do that. And I think that's sort of, for me, it's a bit of the why. But I feel that because freedom is one of my values, it's actually my highest value. And so sometimes I feel that my driver for freedom can be quite selfish. But if I use this quote, it makes me think not just about the need I have personally for freedom, but the benefit that has for the business. Because if I have that freedom in my work and how I feel, then I can do great work. I can be inspired to create better things. And that's sort of why my need for freedom is how I justify it anyway. If Einstein says it, I'm going with it. My need for freedom is sort of in my head, one of Einstein's, better for the business. Yeah, Reg, I like it too. Imagine a team that feel free and are doing their best work and inspired to create new stuff too. So what I want to do is a bit of reflection, first of all. I kind of wanted us to have a bit of a think about a time in your career when you haven't felt free. So I'm imagining most of us have been in one of those situations. So a time when you've felt constrained or constricted, or you just haven't felt whatever freedom means to you. And I would love to know what it was about that situation that made your freedom feel constrained. So if we can just head into chat, and I'm kind of happy to share mine. I think the most constrained I've felt in my career was when I worked for BP. And if I think about the factors that affected my freedom, it was a micromanager. It was having... It was a level of pressure on my work, which meant that I didn't feel I could push back. So I'd probably say, and it was a bit of self-pressure, actually. So probably a bit of a lack of confidence. So I was trying so hard to achieve, and I wasn't confident enough to challenge. So they were probably the factors affecting my freedom were potentially a lack of confidence, a micromanager, and a lot of pressure would have probably been mine. How similar is that to yours? Okay, so you've got micromanagement. So let's get the factors which affect our freedom. So kind of freedom effectors. What do we have here? We had micromanagement. Let's get some of those. Micromanager. It's interesting, isn't it? It's micromanagement. So Lucy said, working for a senior leader who tried to undermine my flexible working arrangement, which actually isn't micromanagement, is it? That's sort of like some kind of Machiavellian weird kind of leader thing. I mean, I don't know how that helps anybody succeed. Other kind of competing priorities. So kind of maybe other priorities in the business, managers who tell you what you can and cannot do. So that manager seeking for control. Lack of soul and creativity. Machiavellian was spot on. Where to work, what else have we got? I'm just catching up with thing here. Working with someone whose behaviour was illogical and damaging with a personal agenda. Yeah, I think other people's agendas are really interesting, because it doesn't have to just be it doesn't have to be a micromanager, does it? It can be a colleague who's quite controlling. I think that can often affect how free we feel at work a lot of the time as well. That was interesting. Processes. So competing priorities, too many processes. That actually was probably part of the organisation that I was working in as well. Katie, reactive workloads. Having to firefight and be reactive all the time. You're like, I want to find my freedom, but every day there's another fire to fight. That's quite hard to, and two of the team around here today, I actually imagine that's probably one of the challenges of working in Amazing If, because it's not so much that we've got lots of fires to fight. It's just we have a lot of things going on in parallel, and there's always something that needs sorting, and it's not always a bad thing. But I can imagine in not a good way that it does affect freedom in our team too. That's interesting, Christine. A lack of clarity. So if you're always trying to second guess what the job that needs to be done is, it might feel like you're never really finding the freedom to be able to do it. Sarah, that's interesting as well. Lack of trust. We did talk specifically about trust on the podcast as well, like the need to find that space to succeed. I'm just catching up. So processes seems to be coming up quite a lot. we've got process. So lots of things there. Reactive stuff limits your sense of ownership. Yeah, processes coming up an awful lot. Processes, you know, I love alliteration, everyone. What we've got: processes, pressures, and competing priorities. I mean, I should have just written that, it would have been more legible. Let's go on to the green stuff. Then. So now I'd love you to move away from that memory for a moment and think about the good times, when you have felt freedom at its most, when you have been able to work in a way and on the things that you want to do and in a way that works for you. What were sort of the factors that enabled you to feel free? So kind of, we're looking now for your personal freedom factors. Really interested in, we talked about what's affecting your freedom. Now let's think about the factors that contribute to your freedom. So agreed the goal. Okay, so we've got kind of clear goals. So it's back to the kind of opposite of that clarity point. So you had really clear goals. Ownership. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, you have, we talk about, you know, that accountability, but also that autonomy. That's what we talked about on the podcast. So, so that ownership piece coming in here, but ownership plus support. I guess that's another way of that accountability, but you've got the autonomy as well. Andrew says complete trustee, empowered to innovate. Yeah, actually, that's interesting. If I think about one of the times that I felt most free, it would have been when I worked for Eon, and my manager, part of my freedom was that he set me up to fail, but actually in a positive way, not a can't wait for you to screw this one up kind of way, much more in a, actually, I want you to do some things that are really challenging, and I kind of expect some of that stuff not to work, and that's okay. And to be honest, if it all works, then that's probably, you know, you're not trying some new stuff out. I want you to try new stuff out. And that freedom to fail is really liberating, because it makes you push a bit harder. So that was something specific to me. And that freedom innovation line's interesting. Collaboration, it's a nice one. So kind of free when you collaborate. I think it's almost like when you need to zoom in as a team, like when you need to be together, when you do need to connect, and then almost when you can zoom out, and having a team that sort of oscillates. Does that make sense? Like we know that we're a team that sometimes we need to come together, but we're not like, we don't have to stay together forever. Like sometimes we can kind of zoom in and zoom out of the relationship. And I think that oscillating is quite interesting. Interesting there, the no blame culture. So no blame. Yeah, we often talk about the toxicity of blame. We have a session around psychological safety. So we take a lot of Amy Edmondson's principles and then talk through how you put them into practice in teams, particularly if you're a manager. And one of the things that really creates a low trust climate is when there's a lot of finger pointing going on. Do you know what's interesting? Is sometimes people create pseudo team trust. What I mean by that is it's almost like, oh, we're all good, we're all doing it right. It's that marketing department that are awful, or the sales team are doing it all wrong again. And actually, people kind of think they're creating pseudo trust because they're creating like a little trust bubble in theory in their team where we're all perfect and we point the finger over there. But what it makes people think is, if you can point the finger so easily over there, it doesn't take that much for you to point it inwards towards me. So it's actually kind of a false level of trust. It's not really authentic, deep trust. Accountability is where we create much more trust, when people own their mistakes and then talk about them. Yeah, it's interesting, Reg. I see it quite a lot. If I'm honest, I think I've probably done it a little bit before, like as a way to make everyone feel sort of belonging. We're in it together. It's those other people we need to work against. And then I kind of realized that just wasn't that effective. I think as a junior manager, I think I probably did some of that stuff. My housemate is living in that fake trust bubble. That's a really nice way of phrasing it. I think it is a fake trust bubble. And I honestly think it's easy to see because it makes you feel like we're in it together, but it is a fake trust bubble. It's the toxicity is still there. You're just kind of trying to hide it with the little bubble you created. Okay, so lots of stuff going on there, and I think it isn't easy. What is interesting is what's in your control, I think, to reflect on some of these things, and we'll talk a bit more specifically about different actions you can take. But broadly, I think these factors that affect your freedom and the factors that increase your feelings of freedom, thinking about what can I take control of is an important part of this. Now, some of it you won't be able to take all of it. If you've got a high blame manager or a high process culture, that is quite a hard thing to influence. But clarity of goals, maybe that's something we can talk about. I maybe creating space so that you can, so that you're not firefighting. Like, is there any way that you can do time blocking and things like that? So at least you get a bit of control back. I think reflecting on your own freedom factors and thinking about which one of these factors are more in my control than others could be something of use to you. The things that I really wanted to talk about, though, were these where, what, when, and how elements. So I think when you are assessing your freedom, we didn't really talk about this in the podcast. It's been something I guess I've reflected on since. I think where you work, so in terms of where you want to work, what you work on, when you work, and how you work are broad categories that I think affect how people feel about their freedom. Am I able to work where I want to? Do I have the trust to work on the things that I want to? Do I have like the autonomy to work when I want to? And do I have the choice to work in a way that works for me? I think that where, what, when, and how is a simple summary. And I would suggest that you score this stuff for you. So for example, I would say, do I have freedom about where I work? Yeah, I mean, I know because it's my own business, I think I do have quite a lot of freedom. But I would say now I probably have a 4 out of 5. The only thing that really affects my freedom is when sometimes we have, like yesterday, for example, I didn't really leave my desk for about, hours yesterday, because my freedom is sort of taken away by the volume of work that we do. So that's probably why it's a 4. Do I have freedom about what I work on? Yes, and it's getting better. So it was feeling like Sarah and I didn't a little bit, but we're trying to claw that back. So that would be mine. Do I have freedom about when I work? maybe getting better. I'll give it a 3.5. And do I have freedom about how I work? I think, yeah, absolutely. And so I am a little bit, but I think this is quite high for me because of, that I have a brilliant team that enable it, and it's my business. But that would sort of be, if I was to have a bit of a freedom flag, that is what mine's looking like at the moment. Out of interest, let's do stars on the screen. So we're going to do a star to begin with, and then I'll pick a different one, like a heart, I think, afterwards. But I'm going to make it anonymous. So let me do that, because we are a high trust community, but I'll make it anonymous. Oh, why can't I do it? Hide names of annotators. Gosh, it's not letting me do it. Done. What I want to do first of all is, which one of those factors on there do you think that is highest for you at the moment? So do you have more freedom at the moment with where you work, what you work on, when you work, or how you work? So if you were to pick one of those that was high at the moment, can you stick a star on the screen with which one feels high for you? Anyone that is new, the way that we do these stars on the screen is, if you go towards the top of your Zoom, you should see view options, and then annotate, and then stamp, and then star. So it's view options, annotate, stamp, and then star. Angela, I'll say it once more, a bit slower, and then if you can't do it, don't worry, you can just let me know. It might be how you join the Zoom. So top of your screen, there should be like a little Zoom toolbar. Can you see view options? If you can't see view options, to be honest, it won't work. It's not you, it's the way you've joined the tech. If you can see view options, then it's view options, annotate, stamp, and star. Sarah's put the instructions into the chat for you, but if you can't see view options, it won't work. So it looks like at the moment, most people have their where as their highest kind of factor for freedom. And then, you got it. It's like the revelation of the day. Your life has changed. Maybe not. Next one, the heart one. Where would you like to have more? So if you were to really sort of focus on one of these factors, which of the 4 factors would give you more freedom, do you think? So is it, I can see quite a lot of people put it on the what's. Hey, Grace. Sweetie, you've got big. Let's have a look. Okay, so people want a bit more freedom with the what that they're working on. Okay, so the freedom factor for the majority of us is the what. So it seems like, because of where, maybe I think a little bit, because probably the pandemic, I think there's been a bit of a forcing function for people to give us more freedom in the where. And I think a lot of the challenge now, I think, is for people to retain that freedom, for it not to, feel like it's going against some of the environments that we create for ourselves. All right, well, what I wanted to do next, thank you for doing that. I've got a bit of a mixed bag, actually, isn't it, on the how? bit of the how's a bit of a mixed bag. Quite clear themes on the where's working, but the what could be better for people. I've just got a few different builds on what we talked about on the podcast. So some practical ideas for action for each of these factors. So I thought I'd talk each one through, and then if you've got any other builds, you can add to them in chat before I move on to the next. So we've got 10 minutes. So I'll go through each one, share the ideas that I've sort of thought through, and then see if you've got any builds. Hopefully that works for you. I'm going to get rid of all of your lovely stars and hearts. There we go. So let's do the where one first of all. So this is the one that people already feel quite good about. I think the discussion to be had here, if anyone does want to find more freedom with the where that they're working, or maybe wants to protect the freedom that you've already created, so you feel like there might be a bit of a risk of it being removed, I think the discussion to have is, when are we better together, and when do I work better because I'm in a certain place or I'm on my own? And I think a really open discussion about what that looks like I might have a view of that. I might go, everybody, I think we are better together on a Monday, because that's when we start the week, and that's when we're going to energize ourselves for the week ahead. And everyone else might be like, no, Helen, we're better together on a Friday because it feels fun and it gets us into the weekend. Monday's a nightmare because we're just, coming back after the weekend and the children are exhausted us. So I think a conversation about when do we all feel we are better together is an important thing, particularly to align on that point and not make assumptions about it. But I think an individual conversation about when are you personally better because you're working in a space and a place that works for you. So for example, I know that I am better if I am something like occasionally working from home. I don't like working from home a lot, but occasionally working from home. I sort of need one day every 2 weeks at home. I don't even want that, but I am better because that, or if I haven't seen my children because of early mornings and things, I'm better working at home because I'll have seen them. And so it's just explaining that to the people that you work with so that they can support and understand your decisions. And I think everybody's better because is a bit different, but I think this is quite a good team chat to have. When are we better together, and when am I personally better because I'm working in this place, in this space? So for example, I know that Sarah is better because on her own, she's better because she's had a walk. So I always know that. So I literally, the office that we are in now, part of the reason for choosing this office was because it's got a garden outside. And I know that the rare times that Sarah works here, she'll be better because she can walk around a garden. I mean, I'll probably go in it once every 2 months. But if Sarah's here, she'd be like, should we go in the garden and have a walk? I'm like, yes, Sarah, that's what we should do. But I know that about her. And it's, I think, knowing that about yourself and knowing that about other people. Any other builds on this? My place says work is a verb, not a place. Yes. I think that's a really nice way of thinking about it. Tenny says those types of questions form part of our agile working. Now we've all moved from the office all the time. Nice. I'm better because I've made time to do yoga. That is nice. I'm better because I Pelotons, or I'm slightly more excited because of it. Okay, so maybe take those questions away. Good to reflect on for yourself. I think a really good team discussion to have, particularly maybe if you're going into new teams or if you're a manager. I think it's a good conversation to have. Second one about the what then. So if you want more freedom with what, now this was the one that for most people, they were like, I'd like some more of this. I think part of this is about positioning. So I can't just go, oh, I want to work on, I do want to work on the Squiggly Career Readiness Scale. I do want to spend some time doing that. I will be doing that in August. Wait, everybody, it'll be exciting. I'm going to come to the Pod Plus community first with this new tool that I'm creating in the summer. Now, I want to work on that and I want some freedom to do it. But if I just said to Sarah, oh, I want to take a week to create this tool, she might be thinking, Helen, there's quite a lot of other things that we need to work on, not your little random tool you want to create. So I think the positioning of what you want to work on is really important. Really think through, if you were to create a business case for what you want to work on, what would the business case be? So for example, I always say to Sarah, not I want to play around with some tech for a week. I will say to Sarah, I want to create a tool so that people can self-service their squiggly skills. And I think, confident people might come to one of our sessions and might already be quite self-aware, but people who haven't got confidence or who don't want to, who aren't kind of brave enough to have that discussion in a session might want to self-assess first. And so that's why it will help more people feel comfortable about exploring their squiggly career skills. Now, when I talk about that, Sarah's sold. So think about whatever the thing is you want to do, position it as if like, what's the business case? What's the benefit for the person who I'm trying to get their buy-in from? The other thing that I would do is think about experiments. Like this is not like a long-term commitment to what I want to do. If you can position it as an experiment, often people are a lot more open to giving it a go. So think about what is the benefit to the person that you need buy-in to, like what's going to make them give you the tick. And then if you can position it as an experiment, easier to commit to. The only other thing that I was thinking here, if I was positioning a bit of a change about what I wanted to work on, I think you've got to think about what can you fix with somebody and what can you flex? And what I mean by that is a bit like Google's 80-20 time. So what you could, with a manager or your colleagues, like 80% of your time, fix it. Like, what are the team priorities? What do we work on? Get loads of clarity on that. Like, sort of give that time away to the team. Like, be the team player. This is your team. Let's agree jointly what this is on. But let me have flex with 20%, because this 20% is where I'm going to create and innovate, and you're going to do all of this great stuff here. So that kind of idea of fix and flex might also work for you. Cat's talk position, make it easy for them to say yes to. Yeah, absolutely. In the past, when I felt frustrated, constrained, I was sometimes down to my own misunderstanding. Doing some work on learning and questions. I really like that. It's almost like empathize first, understand in order to be understood. I like that positioning, Katie. I'm going to keep going because we've got 4 minutes, everyone. I want to make sure I get through these other ones. So freedom with the when. So when you are working. I mean, there's the core hours thing, right? So there's like agree the core hours and then kind of what space do you have around them. So I quite like the principle of 50-50. Like if the team can spend 50% of their time working within sort of the core hours, and then 50% of the time is completely up to you when you want it to be. That's sort of roughly what I think of. But more specifically, I think it is worth agreeing what are the meetings that you do need to be here for, and then what are the moments. So I think I don't really care when my team work, like as long as it works for them, that's all good. But I do care about us all being present in certain meetings. There are certain meetings that I think are important for us to be in. And then there are certain moments that I want people to be part of, like, when we come together in person as a team. And to be honest, outside of certain meetings and those moments, I kind of go, well, you do you. you work in the way that works for you. Now, I appreciate not all managers might be that, but this as a starting point, like what are the meetings and what are the moments, might say, well, and why couldn't we have choice about when we work outside of that? And not as a judgmental question, but just as a genuine question. Like, if we came together for meetings that mattered and we were here for the moments that made a difference, then why couldn't we have the choice then about what was outside of it? It might also be worth sort of analysing how many hours are in those meetings, because if you end up with and that's 40 hours a week that we need to be in those meetings, then that doesn't quite work. But what are the meetings that matter most, and what are the moments that make the difference? I think if you can agree that stuff, the sort of question to be had is, well, why couldn't we have more freedom back when we work outside of that? Any builds on the when? Anyone done anything that's worked with the when? Core hours thing works. Sometimes some days, I know that certain companies have like we all need to be together on this day, for example, but outside of that, it's kind of up to you with what you do. Also, when I think sometimes what can be useful is about expectation setting about responses. So if people expect immediate responses to emails and things like that, or Teams messages, I think it takes your freedom away from when you work. But if you can say to people, I'll come back to you within the next sort of 24, 48 hours, it gives you then a bit more freedom within that period about when you respond, rather than feeling like it has to be automatic. Last minute, freedom about the how. I think getting people to talk about what's your perfect day in the life. I think everybody's how you want to work is quite different. And so I think getting people just to talk through, like, what's the perfect day in your working life? Like, how would you like to be working? And understanding that a little bit more as a team. And then thinking about what of those things do you want to all adopt together, and what might people want to adapt. So in terms of the how we all work, for example, we as a team at Amazing If, we all use Microsoft Teams. And that's one of our hows. We all try and keep as much of our communication as possible on Teams, because that works better for us. Occasionally kind of leaks into WhatsApp, particularly when I haven't responded to something on Teams. So like WhatsApp is the escalation point. But then it's almost like, what are our common hows that we're all going to adopt? And then which of those hows might we adapt? And again, I think just having that, what are we jointly adopting and what am I personally adapting, is perhaps a good framing for that. Katie's just picked up on that previous point about expectations with responding. Sometimes your email out of offices can work for that too. I've seen some funny out of offices as well. So that was all I was going to share today. I hope it's kind of sparked a few different ideas. You might want to screenshot this. I tried to think about, how could I summarize this in a way that might be useful for you to remind yourself or share with other people. But that's kind of the scoring thing in the middle that we talked about. And then those are those different sort of prompts and questions that might be useful for you. So feel free to screenshot that for yourself, screenshot it and share it for other people who might not be here. Take Pod Plus further into the working world. But otherwise, this will be the last time I see you on Pod Plus for a while, because Sarah is going to go solo next week to talk about burnout. But I think I'm back with you on the 1st. One of us definitely is talking to you on the 1st. Can't remember what we're talking about. Probably something about the squiggly career fuel system, ecosystem. Genuinely, if you've got some good ideas for the name of that series, let us know. Email me, helen@amazingif.com, and your ideas will all be appreciated. It will be Sarah both. Oh, you get both of us. There you go. See you all in Pod Plus together on the 1st of September. Sarah will be back next week, and have a lovely summer, everybody. Podcast obviously continues, but Pod Plus is back in September for both of us. All right, take care, everybody. Have a brilliant rest of your week. Take care for now. Bye. See you all soon.